There are places on Earth where natural conditions push far beyond the limits of human endurance, where the ground burns with extreme heat, the air carries toxic gases, and entire landscapes function like an alien system. Yet even within these harsh environments, people do not disappear. They endure, adapt, and preserve rituals that existed long before the invention of written language, acting as a living memory of humanity. High on the near vertical cliffs of Abuna Yemata Guh Church, accessible only by a dangerous climb across bare rock, a church carved directly into solid stone has survived for centuries, its surfaces smoothed by human touch for over 800 years. This is Ethiopia, where some of the oldest human fossils were discovered, where one of the earliest Christian civilizations emerged, and where the East African Rift continues to slowly split the continent at a rate of about 2 centimeters per year. Ethiopia does not simply preserve ancient history as a static archive. It is a living system where geology, faith, and human life continue to evolve together, actively shaping history in real time. And now the journey into this extraordinary land begins. Ethiopia does not appear as a country in the conventional sense, but as a system where geology, history, and life continuously collide and reshape one another. From the molten lowlands of Danakil Depression to the wind-carved highlands of Simien Mountains, this environment was never designed for human life. Yet people persist not by controlling nature, but by adapting to it. Within these extreme conditions, some of the earliest foundations of civilization emerged. The kingdom of Axum was not only an ancient empire, but a system that transformed geographic isolation into strength, building trade networks and belief systems that connected Africa to distant worlds. What remains today is not simply heritage, but evidence of a society that functioned under constant environmental pressure. Yet Ethiopia does not belong to the past. Beneath the surface, the East African Rift continues to pull the continent apart, creating a rare reality where human life exists directly above an active geological process. Here, natural history and human history unfold at the same time, inseparable from one another. In this landscape, culture is not preserved as a static memory, but operates as a survival system. In places like Omo Valley, rituals are not symbolic, they are functional, maintaining social structure and enabling communities to adapt to their environment. Tradition is not optional. It is essential for continuity. Faith is also embedded within this system. Structures such as Lalibela rock-hewn churches were not built above the land, but carved into it, integrating belief directly into the physical landscape. 0 seconds greater than these constructions are not only architectural achievements, but expressions of how humans define their place within a harsh and demanding world. Ethiopia is therefore not a place that preserves ancient history as a finished chapter. It is a living system, where history continues to form, where every landscape imposes pressure, every tradition responds to it, and every structure represents an adaptation within an environment that never stops changing. And that journey begins in one of the harshest places on the planet, where life must fight for survival every single moment. Danakil Depression. This is a giant fire basin lying about 410 feet below sea level, where the brightest landscapes are also the deadliest traps. It is known as the hottest place on Earth by average yearly temperature because the heat does not only fall from the sun, but also rises from the ground below. The most extreme site is the hydrothermal field, where boiling acid pools glow in yellow, neon green, orange, and red, looking beautiful but full of poison. In sharp contrast, white salt deserts stretch out like mirrors and reflect light so strongly that they can blind your eyes for a while in the burning heat. Because the Earth's crust here is very thin, magma stays close to the surface, so at night, parts of the depression can glow red from open lava lakes. And even though almost no tree can survive here, people still mine salt by hand and carry it away on camel caravans stretching for miles across a world that seems made against life. Omo Valley. Stripped of every illusion about the civilized world, this valley remains a place where humans and wild animals still live by the oldest rules of survival. At its heart runs a rushing mud-red river that brings fertile life, but also hides giant crocodiles up to about 20 feet long under the dark water. That same river also makes the landscape change violently with the seasons, turning the land into cracked red dust in the dry months and then into a green maze of wetlands in the rains. In that harsh world, the human body becomes the most important monument, marked with raised scars and clay lip plates as wide as about 6 to 8 inches. To be accepted as adults, boys must leap across the backs of cattle, while women endure bloody lashes to prove strength and devotion. But this wild way of life, shaped over thousands of years, now faces the danger of disappearing as massive dams begin to change the rhythm of the whole valley. Abuna Yemata Guh. Perched on a sandstone pillar in a dry and barren land, this place of worship feels like a fortress of faith hanging in the sky. To reach it, people must climb by hand across a steep rock wall at more than 8,200 feet, placing their feet on tiny holes with no safety equipment at all. Inside the rock chamber are ancient frescoes from around the 15th century, still bright and vivid, as if the paint had only just dried. What makes it even more extraordinary is that for centuries, from elderly people to mothers carrying children, worshippers have still made this climb as an act of complete faith. Around it, there are no gentle hills, only towering red stone pillars rising from a desert landscape, creating a view that feels both majestic and frightening. Carved from the rock since the 5th century, this sacred place also holds the bones of ancient monks who chose to remain there forever high above the ground. Erta Ale. Forget safe places with railings, because here, only a thin, brittle edge of rock stands between a person and lava boiling at about 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit. Because the volcano spreads across about 31 miles but rises only around 1,969 feet, the climb usually begins at night to avoid daytime heat that can reach about 122 degrees Fahrenheit. At the crater, the lava lake keeps breaking into glowing red patches and throws liquid fire about 33 to 66 feet into the air. The path is also covered with black volcanic rock, sharp as broken glass, strong enough to cut through boot soles after only a few steps. The most haunting part is sleeping right on the crater rim, where you can feel the ground shake after each blast from the molten core. And to witness a lava lake that has burned for more than a century, travelers must cross a wild border region under the protection of armed escorts carrying AK-47 rifles. Simien Mountains. From a distance, this place looks like a giant stone chessboard hanging in the clouds, and it also serves as the last stronghold of the Ethiopian wolf, the Walia ibex, and rare troops of Gheralta monkeys. But the most shocking part is that you can be walking across a green plateau, and then with one more step, the ground suddenly falls away into cliffs thousands of feet deep. Far below, the landscape is torn into countless dark towers and sharp pinnacles rising like giant spears pointed back toward the sky. On those cold, high slopes, giant lobelia plants reaching about 33 feet stand alone in the wind, making the whole range feel like another planet. The scene becomes even more alive because of the thousands of Gheralta monkeys with bright red, heart-shaped patches on their chests, running and sleeping on narrow ledges as if the abyss did not exist. And to reach that beauty, you must force yourself across hanging trails only about 16 inches wide, where the fear of the drop below becomes real in every step. Bale Mountains. In the middle of hot Africa, this place appears like a frozen kingdom hanging in the clouds, wild, isolated, and beautiful in a way that feels almost unreal. It is also the last refuge of several rare animals found only in Ethiopia, especially the Ethiopian wolf and huge spiral-horned antelope. But this range does not protect life only for itself, because it works like a giant sponge that gathers mist and rain, then feeds more than 40 rivers that support over 12 million people in the dry lands below. What makes it even stranger is that in one short journey, the land can change completely, from freezing alpine grassland to dark, wet cloud forest so dense that even the light seems to disappear. On that cold grey plateau, giant lobelia plants rising about 39 feet stand in the mist like antennas from another planet, while glacial tarns rest like blue eyes of the earth. That mix of harsh altitude, life-giving water, and animals found nowhere else is what makes this one of the most important and surreal landscapes in Africa. Church of St. George. Instead of looking up at domes, here you have to look down at a castle resting inside a stone pit about 39 feet deep, shaped like an almost perfect cross. The whole church is a single block carved directly from iron-rich volcanic rock, so its red color is the true color of the stone and has lasted for more than 800 years. Built under King Lalibela in the 12th century, it was a bold effort to create a new Jerusalem in the heart of Africa. Ancient engineers also designed the roof and drainage channels with great precision, helping the church survive rain and erosion for centuries. Around it, narrow trenches and tunnels cut through red volcanic tuff, where the stone, lichen, and white robes of priests come together in a scene that feels deeply ancient. But the most remarkable part is that religious rituals have continued here for more than 8 centuries, making the whole stone structure feel as if it is still alive with time. Fasil Ghebbi. Lost in the windy Ethiopian highlands, this fortress appears like a European knight legend placed strangely in Africa in the 17th century. For nearly 250 years, during the brightest age of the Gonda dynasty, it saw more than 10 emperors rise and fall behind its cold stone walls. A massive wall almost 3,000 feet long surrounds a rare mix of Indian, Arab, and Baroque architecture, creating a look found almost nowhere else. Its wild beauty becomes even stronger, where ancient sycamore roots, like giant pythons, slowly tighten around the arches and old stone walls. Like an old wounded warrior, the fortress still carries scars from bombing during the Second World War, making its history feel painfully real. And as you pass through its 12 unsettling stone gates, you begin to feel the weight of an old empire where every step seems to touch the edge of absolute power. Debre Damo Monastery. Instead of walking through a gate, to reach this sacred place, you must cling to a rope made of cowhide and pull yourself up a cliff almost 49 feet high. Because it stands on top of a flat mountain with steep sides on every edge, the monastery looks like a stone island floating in the mist of the Ethiopian highlands. Inside that isolation stands one of the oldest churches in Ethiopia, still preserving the monkey head building style, where wooden beams are locked between layers of stone to survive time and earthquakes for centuries. On the summit, the monks also carved huge reservoirs into the basalt to collect rainwater, creating a small world able to survive by itself among rock and wind. And when you stand at that final border between earth and sky, with clouds drifting at eye level and all human noise far below in the abyss, you can feel the near total silence of this place. Grand Renaissance Dam. This giant hydroelectric dam, worth about $5 billion, does more than hold water and produce power, because it also carries the rising ambition of an entire nation and some of the fiercest geopolitical tension on the continent. The massive gravity wall used more than 13 million cubic yards of concrete and relies on its brutal weight to imprison about 82 billion tons of water, creating pressure so immense that it can bend the Earth's crust in the surrounding region. The dam itself is a roller-compacted concrete gravity wall, stretching nearly 1 mile across a dry canyon, turning the land behind it into a vast artificial lake that is slowly swallowing hundreds of miles of once burned and barren valley. What makes the project globally sensitive is that it stands on the river, supplying most of the Nile's water, while also trapping millions of tons of fertile silt, meaning the rich downstream delta lands may lose their most valuable natural fertilizer forever. By tightening its grip on the river's original flow, this hydroelectric plant can generate enough electricity for 60 million people, and it is also one of the rare dams protected by advanced air defense missile systems. Rejected by international financiers who feared it could ignite war, this colossal structure was built from public donations and the squeezed monthly wages of tens of millions of poor citizens. Axum Stelae Obelisks. In the middle of a dry highland, this place appears like a forest of stone, where giant granite blocks rise like signs of an empire turned into rock. Each stela here was carved from a single block weighing hundreds of tons, hauled from far away and raised with a technique that still amazes people today. What feels strange is that the stone does not show gods or people, but multi-story buildings with windows, doors, and false floors carved in careful detail. Those monuments once stood as a statement of the power of Axum, one of the 4 great powers of the ancient world. But the most shocking sight is the fallen stela of more than 500 tons, broken on the ground like a warning that even the greatest ambition can fail under gravity. And beneath that field of stone lie royal tombs and dark passageways, making the whole place feel both grand and unsettling, like the entrance to a vanished empire. Tiya. Standing in the middle of an empty grassland, Tiya appears like a mysterious graveyard, with 36 volcanic stone pillars set in a line more than 148 feet long, like a spiritual wall guarding the dead. What makes it even more unsettling is that scientists still remain almost helpless, because apart from these stones reaching about 16 feet high, they have found no clear city, writing, or other strong trace of the people who created them. On the stone surfaces are strange symbols that no one has fully decoded, and the most striking of them are swords pointing upward, suggesting a society deeply marked by war and violence. The feeling grows darker when you learn that most of the bodies buried below, curled in a fetal position, belonged to very young people between about 18 and 30 years old. That is why Tiya has become one of the rare World Heritage sites that forces people to admit how little they know about time, because an entire power once existed here and almost completely vanished, leaving behind only stone ghosts. Conso cultural landscape, Ethiopia, appears like a kingdom of stone steps, where people turned dry hillsides into living farmland through patience and hard work. For more than 400 years, local communities have stacked millions of stones to hold soil and water on steep slopes. What makes it remarkable is that these walls were built entirely with dry stone technique, without any mortar, yet they have remained strong through time. Within a landscape of brown earth, grey stone, and dry straw, the tall pointed thatched houses look simple but perfectly adapted to harsh sun and rain. Because of that, this is not only an ancient farming land, but also proof that humans can overcome difficult terrain with skill and effort. The whole place, therefore, feels like a giant monument built not by machines, but by the hands of many generations. Gheralta. Gheralta rises like a giant stone fortress across the Ethiopian highlands, with towering red and orange mountains that look overwhelming at first sight. It stands about 8,200 feet above sea level and is made mainly of red sandstone, about 200 million years old. Over millions of years, wind and water shaped it into flat-topped peaks and cliffs that rise almost straight upward. What makes it special is that the religious buildings here were not built on the rock, but carved directly into it. Because of that, reaching these sacred places often means climbing steep rock walls with bare hands. This blend of fiery mountains, harsh altitude, and churches hidden inside stone is why it is often called the Petra of Ethiopia. Blue Nile Falls. Tearing through the dry highlands, this giant wall of water, about 1,312 feet wide, crashes down about 148 feet with enough force to crush anything in its path. Local people call it smoking water because the torrent slams into basalt rock with such violence that thick mist rises back into the air like smoke. That nearly constant mist also creates a cool green strip around the rim, standing out against the otherwise dry highland landscape. More than just a dramatic waterfall, it carries millions of tons of soil from the plateau and provides about 85% of the water and fertile silt for the entire Nile system. But when hydropower holds back the flow in the dry season, the falls can shrink and reveal black, jagged basalt walls like the teeth of a sleeping monster. Harenna Forest, Ethiopia, feels like a hidden kingdom of mist in the Ethiopian highlands, where darkness, wet moss, and ancient trees combine into a world that seems far removed from time. Covering about 1,545 square miles, it is considered the largest remaining Afro-montane forest in Ethiopia and stretches along the southern slopes of the Bale Mountains. That isolation has also helped make it one of the rare places on Earth where Arabica coffee still grows naturally beneath old forest canopy, while many plants and animals have evolved in their own distinct way. Deeper in Bide, huge trees are draped with hanging lichens like silver beards, and the forest floor is so heavily covered in moss that sound seems to disappear into it. During the wetter season, dense mist often blankets the forest, making even very short distances feel blurred and uncertain. Because of all this, the whole place feels less like an ordinary forest and more like a quiet, primordial realm still living by its own rules. Wenchi Crater Lake, Ethiopia. Feels like a hidden paradise in the Ethiopian highlands, where an extinct volcano holds a lake, forest, and hot springs inside one vast basin. Because it stands at about 11,089 feet above sea level, the whole place feels set apart from the outside world. Inside the crater, the lake is fed by rain and underground springs, which keep the water deep blue and clear. Small islands rest on the surface, and one is linked to an old monastery, giving the landscape both beauty and spiritual meaning. To reach the water, people must walk or ride horses down long zigzag trails, so the journey feels slow and remote. Because a blue lake, hot springs, waterfalls, and steep slopes all exist inside one extinct volcano, it is seen as one of the most peaceful and dreamlike places in Ethiopia. Lake Turkana. Lost in a burning desert, Lake Turkana appears like a giant jade sea, and it is also the largest alkaline lake on Earth, with a surface area of about 2,473 square miles. The land around the lake is also seen as one of the most important cradles of humankind, where many ancient fossils, millions of years old, have been discovered. The water shines with a beautiful jade color, but because the salt and alkaline levels are so high, people can hardly drink it. In the middle of the lake, volcanic islands still seem to breathe, with craters rising through winds of about 31 miles per hour, making the whole scene feel like another planet. At sunset, the lake becomes more unsettling when tens of thousands of giant Nile crocodiles show only their eyes above the water as they hunt. And Among volcanic rock, hot sand, and constant danger, millions of flamingos still gather in bright pink ribbons, turning the place into a contrast that feels almost impossible to believe. Lake Tana appears as the green heart of Ethiopia, a vast lake that not only sustains life, but also holds deep meaning for the entire Horn of Africa. Beyond that geographic importance, the lake holds around 37 islands, and many of them shelter ancient Orthodox monasteries built in remote positions to protect sacred relics and precious manuscripts. Upon that historical and geological setting, papyrus boats known as tankwa still move quietly across the lake, making the scene feel as if part of the ancient world has never disappeared. On calm days, the surface becomes as smooth as a mirror and reflects the full blue sky, making it feel less like an ordinary lake and more like a fragile boundary between earth and heaven.